Hey, it's Amanda the Diabetic, and today I'm going to walk through and show you how to calculate the insulin formula, or at least I call it the insulin formula, but so you're not confused, because I remember when I first saw this, I was like, what? Like, my mind just blanked out, so I'm going to help clear things up, and I'm going to walk you through it. So, to start off with, this is the formula. It's the glucose minus the target divided by the correction factor plus the carb and then divided by the carb insulin ratio. Now, I'm going to go through examples, but you're probably going, what? This is confusing, right? Before I begin, I want to say with the equations, pretend that they're two different equations. Don't say, oh my gosh, that's one big one. Divide it into two. So your first equation will be your glucose minus your target divided by your correction factor. That's the first equation. And then the plus, the carb divided by the carb insulin ratio, that's your second equation. My first example is going to be one of my glucose numbers from a different video, which was 184. And I got my blood glucose from pricking it and then plugging it into a strip, which was into my meter. And then I recommend you see that video first. And then that's how you get your blood glucose. And then you're going to subtract by your target. And my target is 150. So in this example that I do, it would be 184 minus 150. And my correction factor is 50. So then I divide by 50. For the second equation, you would do the carb over the carb insulin ratio. Now, you might be going, okay, what's a carb insulin ratio? Basically, that is per 1 unit of insulin, it's that many carbs. So in the example I'm going to show you, it's 10. So for 1 unit, it covers 10 grams of carbs. To get the amount of carbs, if you look on a prepackaged thing like a cereal box, you go to total carbs and it'll say, I know Honey Nut Cheerios, for example, is 22 for 3/4 cup. So then I'd do 3/4 cup, I'd measure it out, and then I'd do the 22 as the carb, and then you keep adding the carbs for whatever other food you do. So I already did the math, so this is basically what it is, and I used the example for carb that you ate 36.5 carbs and your carb to insulin ratio is 10. So what happened is when I did the 184 minus 150, you get 34 divided by 50, which is 0.68. So that's the first part of the equation. Then I did 36.5 divided by 10, and I got 3.65. You add those together, and you get 4.33. Now you might be wondering, how do I do it? Do I go to 4? Do I go to 4.5? Now, in this case, I would go to 4.5 because it's a little closer than it is to 4. But in another example, let's just say your glucose was 250 and your target is 200. So you subtract and you get 50, and then you divide by 50 and you get 1. I'm using the same example for the carb to carb insulin ratio, so that's 3.65, and when you add that, you get 4.65. Now, do I go to 4.5 or do I go to 5? In this case, I would say it depends on what your glucose is. Now, if you were super high, like in the 300s or 400s, I'd say round up to 5. But in this case, I'd probably go to 4.5. Thanks for tuning in tonight to me explaining how the insulin formula works and how to show you how to do the math so you can take the correct amount of insulin and not be confused or question yourself, did I do this right? So I hope I gave you some insight and that it helps you in the future.